Hello, good morning everybody. I've seen that YouTubers this morning have been undoubtedly quiet with regards to the crypto crash that has been happening in the last couple of days. Prices just getting worse and worse at the moment. What is actually going on? And is this it for 2022? And are we entering a bear market? Or is there still one last saving grace that can save us from the pits of doom and despair? Fortunately, I do believe that the fat lady has not actually sung yet. If I was going to liken it to anything, we right now are in a very strange state of purgatory. We have until this Sunday to rectify falling below the previous levels that we held last summer. This is probably about the 28,800 level. So if we can get above this before Sunday, then the fat lady has not indeed sang. We are very much in between Infinity War and Endgame at the moment. Yeah, just to be completely honest with you guys, so you know exactly how wrecked I am getting at the minute. I'm still majority in the market with a small cash position, probably about 10% of my total portfolio. I have been getting absolutely wrecked these past couple of days, losing tens of thousands of pounds. And whether or not this is my last chance to sound like a mid-level Bond villain, I might as well take it. We are experiencing some pretty crazy stuff. Will it last? I mean, at the minute, it's more of a question of if it continues, then yes. We came down and hit a local low this morning, around 26,000 US dollars. This is low. This is too low. As long as it's a wick, we can deal with it. The daily candle has already closed and sealed our fate. We are below the 28.8k level, which means that we only have until Sunday to get back above it. Otherwise, we have completely lost this bullish market structure, or not even bullish, but the stagnant sideways market structure that we had that could elicit a bullish move to the upside once we break out the pattern. Currently, we have broken out that pattern, and it's to the downside, so that's not great. So yeah, I'm looking at the daily RSI at the minute, and we can see that we're now, according to eToro's charts, we are at 20 on the daily. And if we look at March last year, we are, or were at just below 20. I don't know if that's 18, 17, something like that. And that was at very... In fact, that RSI was even after we'd taken out below there. That was on the way back up, the lower RSI. And if I'm looking at the weekly RSI, we are 33, which seems to be roughly in line exactly, if not even slightly lower than the week's RSI for the bottom of the March 2020 dump, the Corona dump. So if we're comparing these two events, we can see that both of them are caused by exogenous circumstances. Or, well, let's use that very liberally. Let's say there's exogenous circumstances, global macroeconomic events that could be responsible for moving the price, or at least are responsible for making people worry about whether the price is going to move, which then causes them to buy and sell if they are retailers or institutions that are motivated to sell on global macroeconomic events or the fear of other people selling because of global macroeconomic events. It's sort of one of those things where it's like, what came first? Is it the case that these patterns break out because of some sort of naturalistic sort of code that is applied at certain levels of ratio, like the Fibonacci levels, or is it just because everyone believes that, and therefore, because everyone believes it, they all act on it, and it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy? Now, we can't actually know that, but what we can say is that there is exogenous events within the market that can cause these prices to dip, or around the times where these dip. In March last year, we dipped to an RSI of around 30. Before that, the last time the RSI was around 30 seems to be 2019, when we went into our mad crash. And then before that, the RSI hasn't been that low since the bottom in 2015. So we've had the same RSI in 2015 at the bottom, in 2019 at the bottom, in 2020 at the bottom, and we've got it again now. So we are down over 50%, say 60% from all-time highs. And we're at the bottom of the RSI that I can see for Bitcoin for all recording all the way back to 2012. The RSI has never been this low, really. Does that mean that it's not going to crash anymore? No, it doesn't mean that. It could crash further. The RSI can, in theory, go down to zero. The RSI changes over time, and depending on what time you're looking at, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, right? It does change. So it's not something that can be used as a certainty or a guarantee, but is an indicator that is worth looking at. So that's it from an RSI perspective. From a perspective of what we expect to see from blow-off tops, we haven't had that this cycle. We had one in 2018, 2017. We had one in 2013, 2014, but we haven't had what we would expect to see as a blow-off top. In terms of price appreciation, price structure, doesn't look anything like it. It doesn't mean that that's not the case and that it wasn't the top, but if it was the top, then that means that this cycle is a cycle of firsts. This is not what we would expect to see, and it breaks the pattern, which is fine. It can do that, but it's unlikely to do that. It's less likely to do that than it is to follow it. And obviously, you can only base your judgments on stuff on the information that you have before you. When we think about traditional perspectives of what happens at the end of a bull market and the sort of differences that we know as rules of thumb for altcoins compared to Bitcoin, we haven't really seen that either in a lot of cases. Whereas it was true for the most part, to my understanding, for the popular coins, the successful coins in 2017, 2018, right? So if we take my biggest holding, which is Cardano ADA, for example, we can see that the high from 2017, 2018 was around $1.31 to $1.39, depending on what exchange you're looking at. We can see that the high of this year is, or last year, sorry, the high of 2021 was just over $3. So that's an increase of, only like 150, if not less percent, just over 100%, right? So Bitcoin from its all-time high, if that went just over 100%, 100% would be 38. So it pretty much, I'm pretty sure it tripled. Yeah, at least tripled its previous all-time high. Now, Cardano ADA didn't do that. And is that because Cardano isn't very good? Well, it might be, but that's not my perspective. The thing is, the rule of thumb that applies to altcoins and Bitcoin didn't play out. Normally it's the case, but altcoins are more volatile than Bitcoin. And that goes both ways, up and down. As you can see, Bitcoin has dropped from 69k down to 28k. Boom. 60% drop. ADA dropped from $3 to 40 something cents this morning. So that's like what? Like an 80% drop. 75, 80% drop. But the thing is, right, it's comparably, it's 1.5 times as much as Bitcoin, give or take, if not less, right? But it's still more than Bitcoin. The volatility has played down and extended altcoins, specifically ADA, further to the downside, but not further to the upside. That leads me to believe that either something is different about this cycle, there's something different about how people are allocating the capital towards Bitcoin and certain altcoins, and maybe they're going more Bitcoin heavy and more the leading altcoins heavy, like Ethereum. But then saying that, ADA is leading altcoin. So is it the case that this capital is being allocated elsewhere in the crypto market because of different levels of opinion and belief in different coins? Or is it the case that the reason that these highs haven't been hit, we haven't mimicked the alt season that came after the all-time high last time, is because Bitcoin hasn't actually hit its all-time high in the cycle yet, right? That could be possible still, providing that we get this close before Sunday. I'm not saying it's likely, but is Bitcoin doing the likely things at the minute? No, it's not. There's been plenty of times where we've expected it to bounce off levels of support coming down from 69k, get a nice bounce, and continue its bullish pattern up. But that hasn't happened. This apparently is a cycle for firsts and patterns being broken. So, is it the case that now the structure's broken, we can't go back up? No, it'd be unlikely, but everything in this cycle's been unlikely. So, everything's still at play. Everything is still at play. You got to be careful because this could drop fast. I mean, some people are saying it could drop as far as 10,000. I don't see that happening, but I didn't see it breaking 28k support either. Like I thought it could happen. It's possible. It's theoretically possible. Did I think it would happen? No. And if I did, I thought it would happen on a daily and we'd get the daily close above it. But there's still signs here that are telling us that it's not. But the signs that tell us that it might be over are signs which we're not accustomed to seeing. So we should trust those signs less, in my opinion. Obviously, this is not financial advice. You've got to do what you want to do. Don't listen to me. I held from ADA all the way down from $3 to what we are now, 40 cents. So it's one of those. But, at the same time, this is a game of accumulation for me. I'm only going to live one life. I only need to get rich once. I don't need to do this new game plus and plus and plus and plus and plus. As long as I can keep accumulating, that's absolutely fine. We can just keep building our positions, and then as time goes into the future, I'm certain this technology will succeed. And if I'm wrong, then, at least I put my money where my mouth is and I'll be able to live with myself in 10 years, rather than thinking, I really believed in that and I regret not getting in it, I regret not staying in it, I regret selling out when it was at the bottom, or whatever is the case that you might end up doing. But there is still hope. It's not over yet, and the fat lady is still yet to sing. But I tell you what, it's getting pretty close to our halftime show. So, something's going to happen soon. I think all it takes is a Michael Saylor buy order, or a Elon Musk buy order, or a piece of good news, and the market can pump. Whether or not that's retail investment buying on the news and pumping it, or whether it's pure manipulation. Because if we do look at the market, we can see that it seems like it may have been manipulated quite a few times. We had the events back in 2021 of the apparent Wyckoff distribution phase between the first half of 2021 and going into the summer, the Wyckoff accumulation phase that puts us back up to the new highs of $69,000. Further arguments to invalidate the fact that obviously we had this all-time high, we did have a bigger high of $69,000, is that with inflation, quantitative easing, the money printing, 69,000 was probably worth 63,000, if not even less. The M2 money supply has gone absolutely ridiculous. They've pretty much doubled the money supply in the last year. I think I've read something like 60% of all dollars that existed were created in 2020. So something crazy like that. Go check for yourselves. But my point is, we haven't necessarily had a blow off top. Does that mean that the cycle's not over? No, it doesn't mean that. But if the cycle was over in November, then we did strictly adhere to a 4-year cycle within a month or two, with a little bit uncertainty. But that makes sense. And if it was the top in November, then we've already experienced quite a lot of downside. If we look at the previous markets, the downside from end of a bull market to end of a bear market is roughly 12 months. We have been doing this dance for January, February, March, April, May, June. So yeah, we've done this 6 months already. We're halfway through to the bottom. Now that doesn't mean that in 6 months it's going to go back up if we are at the bottom, if we are in a bear market. But what it does mean is that the bottom should be roughly around there. After there, the bottom should be in. You can trade in between the lower and upper ranges. We can still make money. Things can still 5x, 10x. Sure, whatever. You've already sat through quite a lot of it. That doesn't mean you should sit through it more, because if you have the need to get that capital out and you can't hold it for that amount of time, or you want to risk it for a swing trade to buy some even lower, then you can do that. You can do whatever you want. I wouldn't do it with all of your stuff, but you can do whatever you want. Personally, I think if you wanted a cash position, you probably should have done that when we were in the 40,000s. But that's not me saying you can't get a cash position now. However, like I said, It's very hard for me to want to get into a cash position when we're at the lowest RSI that we've seen pretty much ever for Bitcoin. And if I'm looking at ADA, ever. It makes no sense to me from a realistic fundamental perspective that Bitcoin is worth less now. The fundamentals are the same, the adoption is better, the understanding is better, the use case is better, there's more utility. Everything when comparing Bitcoin to early 2020 is far better. But yeah, that doesn't mean that the price will stay up at these levels. It could slouch back down, it can go further down, it can be completely off the mark of its fair value. That can happen because obviously markets are only facilitated by supply and demand. And if there's not a demand, it doesn't matter how amazing the property, supply and demand economics aren't going to cause the price to increase as it does. But yeah, back to talking about manipulation. Ever since I've been in the market, which is 2019, but really getting heavily into the market in April 2020 to May 2020, you know, I've had ups and downs. I've sat there, I put pretty much all my money into ADA, and I watched it double, and then I watched it go less than what it was. And I've been working to save this money for years and years and years. And I was honestly, biting my nails, crapping my pants a bit. And I don't want to sound fatalistic because I don't believe in that sort of stuff. I'm not even deterministic. I think, philosophically, I'm very probabilistic in terms of outcomes. So I don't think anything's going to happen for certain. But what I will say is that if things are certain, because they're manipulated and they are orchestrated, it does seem to be that Bitcoin will always get the pump exactly at only the last moment that it needs to. It won't get it safely and securely 20% above where it needs to get it. It will drop below where it needs to get it, scare a bunch of people, liquidate a bunch of positions, and then bounce back up, confusing out of everyone. That's what it will do. So, I'm not convinced this is over yet. But then again, give it another week and I might be singing a different tune. We'll just have to see where price goes, what happens to structure. If we keep the structure, then it looks like we're all good. If we break the structure, then it looks like we're very bad and possibly for a prolonged period of time. So that is something to bear in mind. If you have commitments or things that you need this money for, it shouldn't have been in the market anyway if you need it. But if there is things that you need, maybe your circumstances have changed, then it might be a good idea to take out at least what you need now to prevent it from going down any further and you not having what you need so you can pay your bills or whatever it might be. That being said, if you don't need it at this point, it might be worth keeping it in. Like I say, you can swing trade it if you want, but in my experience, that's when I find I tend to lose money, especially over the short term. My best gains have been from buying low and holding into strength. I haven't really sold that much into strength, I'm going to be honest, because like I said, the tops didn't mark what would be consistent with top signals. So, I mean, we got the pie indicators and stuff like that, but in terms of price appreciation, it was nowhere close. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Hopefully, some people found that helpful. Hopefully, it wasn't that annoying. If I had to flip a coin to decide which way the market was going, I think that's pretty much where I am now. I'm at a 50-50. I'm not convinced of anything. It could very easily fall down. But at the same time, if this market is manipulated as heavy as people think it is, then it's going to get a bounce today, probably to 32k, and then by Sunday to 40 to 42k. And that's if manipulation, and if we are all playing parts in their little play, that's what's going to happen. And hopefully, if we are playing parts, it won't be the part of a fool that we are playing. So, fingers crossed, hopefully everything goes all right. But we can only judge it based on what we've seen before. Based on what we've seen before, this is very risky. You see a lot about moving averages, breaking moving averages, coming below, all that sort of stuff. The only thing that I would remind people of is that the market does reflect the reality of the situation. Now, that does mean that you can use these indicators to make judgments and assessments based on probability. And like I say, I'm very probabilistic, but that doesn't actually mean that it's going to necessarily happen. So we can say every time this has happened before, this has happened. But what you can't say is that the exogenous events are the same. You can't say whether or not certain things cause it to come down to this level. You can't say whether a price is manipulated to go down to this level, like a ball being pushed underwater. Once it stops being pushed, it will float back up. Despite the fact that you might say, oh, but the ball's always stayed underwater before when it's been pushed down. Yes, because the hands are still there. You don't know when the hands are coming up, right? You don't know when we're going to stop manipulating it, if it's the case that they are manipulating it. So we're just going to have to wait and see at the minute. Like I say, my bullish perspective is we'll break 32k later on today, make a close above 28k. 32k is just it's just a random number. Do you know what I mean? There's no specific reason, but it'll be a nice healthy pump, maybe to 32k, and then 40k thereafter. From that point, we're looking good. We've got a nice healthy wick to the downside, and we're looking to enter the rest of 2022 going up, hitting that 100k that everyone was talking about after having a very, very scary moment. And this could be your best opportunity to accumulate Bitcoin for the foreseeable future. Alternatively, this could be the worst time to accumulate Bitcoin for the next 2 years. So it's entirely up to you. The only thing I can say is that everyone that bought before September 2021 is still in profit. So to go back to, so I once heard a very famous sort of saying from a hedge fund guy, and it was, if the chart's going from the bottom left to the top right, you buy it. If it's going from the top left to the bottom of the right, you don't buy it. So I just encourage you all to go to the weekly and look at Bitcoin. Draw a line from 2009 or 2012 or however far back you can go now, and draw a line to today's exact price and tell me as a vector which way that's moving. That's all I think about, really. As long as I don't get a brain tumor or the big C or something like that happen, I will see the days when these prices are a lot higher than what they are. They offer so much potential, there's so much utility and use case. These can change and revolutionize the way that a lot of people live their lives. And it's not really for us, for the reasonably wealthy people in the first world. This is more about banking the unbanked, helping these people in Africa, giving them the ability to open and sustain businesses, stimulate their economy, cause growth, attract outside investment, become more first world in terms of their offerings, medical, school, jobs. We want to make this playing field as equal as possible. But at the same time, we want to get rich doing that. And that is why ADA was such a great pick for me. It married my philosophical notions with the financial notions. But I do think that any pump today that takes us above $30,000, will rely on the US markets opening and, the dollar not doing so well. The people are buying the dollar at the minute because it's a safe haven asset, or it's seen as such. That's what my dad tells me anyway. Personally, I don't see how it can be a safe haven asset when its supply is just being manipulated at the wazoo. They're just increasing it. I don't understand how people can think it's a safe haven. But regardless, the market is buying more and more into the dollar. So the price of the dollar is going up, regardless. The price of the dollar, it looks like it's correlated to the Bitcoin price. So ideally, if we could have it come down today, that might facilitate the pump. If it continues to pump, it's going to be a lot harder for Bitcoin to get back above